Welcome to Fan Fave with Katrina.
Fan Fave with Katrina.
It's time to talk pop culture.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Katrina, and this is Fan Fave, the ultimate pop culture podcast for fans of all forms of entertainment. If you love music, television, film, theater, or anything in between, you're in the right place. It's February, and the most romantic holiday of the year, Valentine's Day, is this week. I'm a single girl who loves to live vicariously through fictional characters on the big screen. So today we're going to be chatting about some of the most iconic romance movies. Consider it my personal playlist of romance movies that I recommend checking out this week. But first, it's time for a pop recap. Let's talk everything trending in the entertainment world that I have not been able to stop talking about since I last spoke to you all. First of all, we have to talk about the Super Bowl, which happened on Sunday. As for the game, the Chiefs won. On Sunday, I put out a poll for who you guys wanted to see win, and 67% of you all voted for the Chiefs. So congrats to y'all, I guess. I didn't want the Chiefs to win, but they did, and seems like the majority of you all did, so congrats. The game was kind of boring to me at first, and the first quarter, coming from someone that doesn't even really watch football ever, I tried to pay attention. But no one was scoring. And then it was so stressful in the last quarter when they tied up and stayed so close to each other's scores down to the last seconds. And then they went into overtime. And I still thought the 49ers had a chance. But then when the Chiefs won, it was quiet. It was so quiet in my house. I did not say a word. I just sat there. I hate that they won. I explained why on last week's episodes, so I won't be a hater again completely today. But y'all gotta come harder next year. And by y'all, I mean literally every other team in the NFL. How are we gonna let the same team win back to back? Are we serious? I also just discovered Brock Purdy last night, so I had started rooting for him because of his story and how they doubted him, basically. For those that don't know, I don't know, this is apparently a very known thing, but whatever, I just discovered it. I didn't know who he was or this story until last night. 2 years ago, he was drafted into the NFL, and he was the very, very, very last pick, number 262nd. And he received that year's title of Mr. Irrelevant, which is basically the nickname given to the person drafted with the final pick of an NFL draft. And usually the person that gets the Mr. Irrelevant title never makes it far with the team. They're usually dropped, basically, which I didn't even know they could do that, drop somebody after they sign them. I don't know how it works, but apparently they don't even make it to further than training camp or to the real season. But for Brock Purdy, that did not happen. And over the past 2 seasons, he was able to move up the ranks because he would basically get tapped into be quarterback whenever the lead quarterbacks were injured. And he showed out and was really good, allegedly. I don't know. I'm just repeating what my dad told me. And so this year, he became the quarterback, the lead quarterback, because he was so good. And he's literally only 24. And so I was that's a really cool story. I'm rooting for him. And then I had to watch him lose. That was sad. Honestly, the confetti falling and CBS cutting the camera to the devastating looks on the 49ers' faces while the Chiefs are on the field celebrating, that was cinema. Because then they kept panning it back and forth to Taylor Swift and Ice Spice and Blake Lively huddled up in their suite. And then all of the Chiefs people rushing the field. It was such a jarring back and forth view. But yeah, whatever. It's their third win and their last. At least Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce got their happy ever after, though. And Paul Rudd and Heidi Gardner. We like them. On last week's episode, I ranked every single Super Bowl halftime show from 2000 until 2023. And now I get to share my thoughts on this year's performance with Usher. You guys, I think Usher absolutely killed this halftime. I think it's easy to forget how many hits that Usher actually has. He has so many, and he runs through a lot of them in mashup form, sometimes only singing one or two lines of a song. I mean, the set list is so stacked with 11 songs, and he did have more time than usual to help with that. This was the longest Super Bowl halftime show ever, clocking in at around like 14 or 15 minutes. And then I know I mentioned in last week's episode that Usher said that he was going to pay homage to Black artists of the past, and he definitely did. He wore a single white glove and sampled Can You Feel It? And that was a tribute to Michael Jackson, who headlined the 1993 Super Bowl halftime performance. So I thought that was like a pretty cool throwback. And just a little fun fact is he wouldn't actually be the first to pay tribute, because Beyoncé also paid tribute to Michael Jackson in the Coldplay halftime performance, where she dressed in an outfit similar to his halftime performance back in 1993 as well. So these artists are continuously paying homage to Michael Jackson, one of those artists that definitely inspired them, and I think that's like super cool. Usher is a dancer, so this was a high energy performance with awesome choreo, but there were also a ton of stunts and acrobats and people doing flips and being tossed across the field. Like, that opening number just looks so sick. I think I even almost like caught people in stilts. So I was like, how are they doing that? I mean, it felt very Vegas. And I have to shout out the marching band, who was the Jackson State University Sonic Boom of the South. They sounded so good. And then they did like this formation where they spelled out like Usher, like the letters. And as a former marching band kid, I thought that was like so cool to see. Those formations were like absolutely perfect. Usher brought a lot of friends out with him for this performance, including Alicia Keys, who sang her song If I Ain't Got You, and then she sang the hit song My Boo with Usher, which is one of my favorites and has everyone online talking about that chemistry. They're just really good at playing it, but it was a really good performance. And then he brought out her, who did an epic guitar solo. She's so talented. I was so excited and happy to see her at the halftime. And then, you guys, it was rumored, but I wasn't sure that he would actually do it. But Usher did, in fact, roller skate. There was a whole roller skating number, and it was awesome. I think that was actually probably like my favorite part of the show, really, was just like the roller skating. Because, like, come on, who does that? No one has done that. And I would be nervous to do that. Like, I'm just not a good roller skater, but like, still, like, I feel like I would get nervous in that like high pressure performance environment. But you know what? He did a great job on those skates. Usher also brought out will.i.am, which I thought was kind of a cool full circle moment, since will.i.am, along with the Black Eyed Peas, brought out Usher in their 2011 halftime performance. So it's kind of like a back and forth thing. And yeah, I think the last 4 songs of this halftime were probably my favorite. I mean, it goes from You Got It Bad with her to OMG with will.i.am. And then you've got Lil Jon, who comes out and he does Turn Down for What? And can I just say, that moment with the fans on the field, I'm telling you, like, that's my dream. I need to be in that crowd. But they were so, like, high energy, like, jumping up and down. Like, that's how it should be. And honestly, that song, it just took me straight back to the year 2013. Then it culminated with Ludacris joining them, and they all performed Yeah together. It's just like a huge party, and that's such a solid like finale song. I would say that in general, this is a pretty solid performance that would almost certainly crack into my top 10. So maybe next year I rework my list and we do another halftime episode, maybe to throw in a little bit of a challenge. I watch every single Super Bowl halftime show like ever. We'll see. That's a lot of work, but we'll see. Maybe next time or something. Now, let's talk commercials. There were some big talkers in there, of course. First, I want to talk about the Verizon ad that pokes fun at Beyoncé breaking the internet, because then, of course, it ends with Beyoncé making an announcement to break the internet. This commercial was teased for a while, but I honestly thought it was going to be a residency at the Las Vegas Sphere. I just kept hearing a rumor going around about it, and I fell for it. But to be honest, what we got is even better. At the end of the Verizon commercial, which features Beyoncé doing wacky things in an attempt to break the internet, like announcing a presidential campaign and going to outer space, she ends it by saying, "Drop the music." And like every other totally normal person, I frantically ran to the internet, and I felt like it took so long to know what was actually like going on. But then it was announced that Renaissance Act 2 is coming out March 29th. I'm so excited, you guys, or should I say I'm so excited, y'all, because I think this may be a country-influenced album. And I grew up a fan of country music, so I'm so here for it. She released not one, but two new singles to go along with the album announcement on Sunday night. They're called Texas Hold'em and 16 Carriages. So let me know your thoughts on them on social media because we love a good surprise drop, and I'm just so excited for Renaissance Act 2. We also got a ton of new movie content. I was like losing my mind. It was like one of the first commercial breaks, and we got the trailer for the new Deadpool film, which we now know is called Deadpool and Wolverine. It's coming out in July, and this duo is going to be so iconic. Like, Marvel is so back. I'm calling it. Marvel is back. We also got the trailer for Wicked Part 1, and I have to say, I was on the fence about my excitement for this movie, and I think I still am, but I wouldn't say that that's bad. My negativity towards the film is that it's being split into two parts, and I, like other Broadway fans, I share the same sentiment that Act 1 of Wicked, like in the musical, is way better than Act 2. And I think we all know that Defying Gravity is like the big song, and it's just like, I don't know, I feel like there's no incentive or excitement to build up for another year after seeing Wicked Part 1 to be excited for Wicked Part 2 when all of the best parts of Wicked are in Part 1, all of the best songs of Wicked are in Part 1, and then it's like, how long is each part? Because like, are we getting like 5 hours of Wicked content, or could they have just made it like a 3-hour movie? That's what I'm like really curious about. Is it going to be like 2 super long movies? Because if that's the case, I think I just care about seeing Wicked Act 1, and I'll still see Act 2 just to see it through, but I feel like Act 1 is going to be the moment, and then Act 2, they might have to add stuff in to kind of like fluff it up. We'll see. You never know. Like, they might have like a new song or two in there. Like, it's really like the first look, so I'm not like really judging. I'm like really curious how they're going to do it into 2 movies. Beyond that, though, I'm really excited to see Cynthia Erivo's Elphaba. That Defying Gravity note at the end of the trailer that they played last night was iconic. It's already getting like discourse on like the Broadway internets, but I think that her changing it was a good move. I mean, we hear the riff the exact same way all the time. Like, let's spice it up and add something new, and I think that Cynthia Erivo killed it. Like, I was literally like gasping when I heard that note. I was like, oh wow, like she changed it up and it's awesome. I love the new like riffed note at the end. I am just a little bit antsy about the world building they've done here. I want like a very whimsical musical vibe, and then this was just like, it was like more of like grand, like CGI adventure style, if that makes sense. And that's just like, I don't know. I feel like we haven't seen a ton of content, and then this was also a commercial geared towards a wider audience. And I want to say like with Wicked, it's going to feel a lot different than like recent movies like The Color Purple and Mean Girls, where people were like, oh, like they're hiding the fact that it's a musical because people don't want to see musicals anymore. Well, I think this is different because Wicked has never not been a musical. I mean, it was a book, but after that, it was never not a musical. It's not like a classic film like Mean Girls that they added music to and people are surprised. Like, I don't think that people should be surprised when they go sit inside a Wicked and hear people singing. But that's just me. I mean, everybody doesn't know it, but I think that they're not going to be one of those movies that hides the fact that they're a musical. But we'll see. There still wasn't like that much music in the trailer, but it was still like a little teaser trailer. It wasn't like the full thing. And then another thing that I saw, for example, was on the Broadway subreddit, people were like, oh, we're seeing like Dorothy and Friends in Part 1. They aren't even until Act 2 in the musical. And then even then they're like behind the curtain. We don't actually like physically see Dorothy and Friends when you see Wicked on Broadway. And so I was just thinking about it, and I was like, they probably put that in the trailer too for all of the Super Bowl viewers who have no clue what Wicked is. But then when they see Dorothy in the trailer, they go, oh, it's the Wizard of Oz universe. And so that makes people more interested in it. But I also think like maybe like they put content from both Part 1 and Part 2 into the movie, because the trailer just says like Wicked. It doesn't say like Wicked Part 1. So I'm not sure like how they're going about it. But yeah, I'm really excited. I was really excited when the trailer came on, and I'm just pretty hyped for the movie, regardless of like my reservations about it. I need to see more. I have no doubts that the soundtrack is going to eat though, because we also have Ariana Grande as Glinda. Her and Cynthia are going to kill it. And also, I'm just throwing it out there that Ariana and Cynthia absolutely slayed their Wicked themed Super Bowl looks. They went to the Super Bowl on Sunday night wearing matching pink and green Elphaba and Glinda sequin jersey dresses. Like, that was like such a look. And if that's just a teaser to how their press tour looks are gonna be, I'm so excited. We also got a new trailer for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which is such a mouthful to say, and which my mom wants me to let everyone know is going to be a very good movie. I've never seen any of the Planet of the Apes movies, and if I have, I haven't seen them in full, but it looks like my family will be there on opening night, so I'll let you guys know my thoughts on that. I think it comes out in May, so yeah, we'll see that. We also got our first look at the new Twisters movie starring Daisy Edgar Jones, Glenn Powell, and Anthony Ramos. It actually looks pretty good. I'm hopeful for it. I love the original Twister movie from 1996. While it's sometimes hard to watch remakes of good classic movies, I don't think they can mess this one up, honestly. And it's more of a sequel than a remake anyways. So yeah, like, they can't do tornadoes wrong. It's a tornado action movie. I mean, yeah, it's kind of like more geared towards like the science of it too, because they're like storm chasers or whatever, but like, I don't think this is something that can be messed up. So I think that it's going to be a pretty fun movie regardless, and I'll be sat opening night in July for this. Just to do a quick rundown of some of my other random favorite commercials. The Ben Affleck Dunkin commercial. I always loved Ben Affleck's Dunkin commercials, but this one had a lot of fun cameos like Jennifer Lopez, Matt Damon, and Tom Brady. Like, it was kind of stacked, and they were like a little boy band. It was cute. Also, Ice Spice's Starry commercial was so silly. And then you had the commercial that I think was for a mayo company. I didn't catch the context, but it was about a cat. And then Pete Davidson made a surprise cameo in it, which, not to say surprise, but like, I just was not expecting him. And then he dated the cat in it, which is like poking fun at like his dating life, I guess. But it was so silly. Like, it was just very random. I was not expecting that at all. And then I guess all of these commercials that I'm saying, like, very like goofy ones, because I also have the one where they were like talking babies playing pickleball, and another one with a hula hooping dog. And I don't even know what it was about. You might not have even caught it because it was like they were in a living room and there was like 10 different things happening, and like in the corner was like a dog with a hula hoop, and I just caught that and nothing else. But yeah, that commercial was funny too. I also have to shout out two very clever ones. One was an Elf commercial, and it was court themed, and it featured Judge Judy as the judge, the cast of Suits as lawyers, and Ronald Gladden from Jury Duty was sitting in the jury. I just think, like, excellent work whoever came up with that. It was like seeing everyone court related in all of the shows that I've watched, like, just a perfect reunion. And I love seeing Ronald Gladden from Jury Duty because that show was so funny. It was very funny. I love that people haven't forgotten him. The other one that I think was very like cleverly done was the one with Michael Cera for Cerave, where he's like, I invented Cerave, like for his name. I just think Michael Cera is so good at being like, I don't want to say like unintentionally funny, but like, yeah, just like unintentionally funny. Like, it was such a simple commercial, and I was like dying laughing because I just love like stupid, like corny stuff like that. Like Cerave, like for Michael Cera. Hilarious. Very well done. Now, hopping over to all of the other non-Super Bowl stuff from last week, because a ton of other pop culture stuff did in fact happen. First off, in film, Moana 2 was announced, which I was not expecting at all. It's coming out on November 27th, and I'm a huge fan of Moana. Like, the soundtrack, like, just the scenery. Like, she's just, like, my favorite, like, recent Disney character, Disney movie. There's just, like, I've constantly been asking for anything new with Moana for years, and we got, like, the exhibit, or, like, the interactive, like, thing in Epcot, which is really cute. Like, I love the Tafiti. I got to see it in December, and I was like, this is awesome. But we also got a live action, which I don't care much about, but I just don't typically like Disney live action movies. So I was like begging, like, please, like, can we just get an animated sequel instead? And then now we get this sequel. Back in our December 2023 wrap-up episode, I talked about how I was looking forward to the previously announced Moana show, and I think I might have mentioned that I wasn't even sure what was happening with it because we didn't really get any updates for a very long time. Disney kind of just went very hush-hush on it, and I didn't even know if it was still happening, but it is still happening. It's just now it's going to be the movie. And I'm really excited about this because I've been saying Moana deserved a sequel. I was sat back mad watching the Frozen sequel, and I know Frozen was a bigger movie, but the Frozen sequel was just it was so mid. And I was come on now, we could have gotten a Moana sequel. There's so many sequels that Disney has put out since Moana 1, and I'm why are they so quiet with Moana? We could have got a Moana sequel. It would have been great. And so I'm very excited because they're turning the show into this movie now. I don't think a show would have done as well as a movie. I feel unless it's a very viral property like Marvel or Star Wars, their shows just kind of do very average on Disney Plus. So with a movie, we can be outside, we're gonna go see it. And by the way, if the release date for the Moana 2 movie sounds familiar, it is because that's the exact same day that Wicked Part 1 releases. So that's my Barbenheimer mashup for this year. It's in November, Thanksgiving weekend. It's about to be a pop culture moment. Who is double headering Moana 2 and Wicked Part 1? Which one do you even see first? I'm thinking Moana 2 because Wicked is probably just going to be so much. It's probably so long. But yeah, I'm very excited. There's still not a ton of details out yet, but they did say that this is an expansive new voyage with Moana, Maui, and a brand new crew of unlikely seafarers. After receiving an unexpected call from her wayfinding ancestors, Moana must journey to the far seas of Oceania and into dangerous, long-lost waters for an adventure unlike anything she's ever faced. Ali'i Cravalho and Dwayne Johnson are set to return to voice Moana and Maui, so that's very good. But then the creative team will be a bit different. Most notably, the first thing that I noticed is that Lin-Manuel Miranda will not be returning to do the soundtrack, which I'm very, very disappointed about. I don't know why or what happened behind the scenes, but I think that one of the things that made the first Moana movie so great was the soundtrack. And we know Lin-Manuel Miranda is just a genius with the pen. He's always going to produce and make the best soundtrack ever. His track record is so good. And if there's a Moana 2 without Lin-Manuel Miranda behind it, it does make me a little bit nervous. But the team that will be doing the music is Abigail Barlow and Emily Bear. They're that duo Barlow and Bear. If that sounds familiar, it's because they're the two young girls that went viral on TikTok for creating the Bridgerton musical. I'm not a big fan of Bridgerton, so I haven't listened to the Bridgerton musical that they did, but I have heard that these girls are very young music prodigies, and they're very talented at what they do. So I'm for it if they're going to be very good. I just, I said, Lin-Manuel Miranda was killing it in the first movie, but this might just add a new twist, a new sound to it that's still very good. We'll just have to see. Now, this week's releases, let's talk. This week, we've got 2 big new movies coming out. First, we have the Bob Marley biopic, which is called One Love, and then we also have Madam Web. I think I'm probably going to end up checking out both of these. My parents definitely want to see the Bob Marley movie, which looks like it's probably going to be pretty interesting, and I feel I'll learn a lot since I don't know a lot about Bob Marley, just his songs, but not his story, and so I'm pretty excited for that. And then I'm also looking forward to seeing Madam Web, which honestly doesn't look that great, but I'm hoping it will be entertaining. This might be the first movie, though, where bad CGI actually does ruin my experience, because there's just something about the trailer that looks very, off. But I am planning on going to see it because I just feel the cast is good, and I like Spider-Man, the Spider-Man universe. I feel it can't be that bad, and sometimes bad means good. If it's bad, it's probably going to be the type of bad that's very camp, so I'm not too concerned about it. Moving on to the theater world, there's just so much to talk about constantly with theater. But I just kind of wanted to talk about it since, like, we're starting to get into the heat of it now. And by the heat of it, I literally mean that there are 11 new musicals coming within this 2 month, like, span between, like, February and April. 11. That's a ton of musicals. I know The Notebook just had their first preview earlier, like, over the weekend or, like, earlier last week. And I'm very excited for that one. But I just, like, it's kind of overwhelming. I feel like there's like a lot to keep track of. And what I've been seeing lately, as bad as it sounds, is that people online, like on the Broadway subreddit and in like my Broadway Facebook groups, they're like kind of like playing this game of like trying to guess like out of all these shows, which ones are going to be successful and which ones are going to be like flops, because these people are coming in from out of town. They're making like multiple trips. Like I'm coming up in April and then I'm also coming up in July. Which shows do you think are going to last until July and which ones do you think I better see in April? And I feel like that's kind of like the game that I'm playing in my head too, because it's like there's so many shows. And it's just like, I feel like lately Broadway audiences, or I guess just like Broadway fans, like the people that really care about this stuff, are starting to kind of get overwhelmed because it's like a really good show can open. And without the right marketing, without the right like star power or whatever it is that be the case for a show, it can just close like that. Like How to Dance in Ohio just shuttered literally this past weekend. Its opening date was in December. It's like these shows do not stand a chance a lot of the time, and it sucks when it's like a really good production and it's just like the tourist or whoever, like they just couldn't get people in there. And so it's like all of these shows are coming to Broadway. All of them look really good, and it's like every tourist, every New Yorker can't see them all. And so it's like which ones will make it, which ones won't. And I'm kind of playing that game in my head. But I'll say that I am very excited for, I'd say my top like 3 or 4 maybe that I'm most excited for are Water for Elephants. It looks like a very big spectacle. It's got Grant Gustin. I'm very excited. And then I'm also looking forward to The Notebook because it just has very like good reviews. I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know much about it, but it looks really good, and there are cast members in it that I've seen in other productions that I think are like phenomenal, and so I would love to see them on the stage again. And then I'm also very excited for The Outsiders because that is a musical based off of source material that I'm familiar with. I read the book The Outsiders. I haven't seen the movie before, but I did read the book. And that one, that whole like aesthetic of it, I don't know if that's like the right word, but like the vibes of it, they seem like very fun. Like I feel like it's going to be like high energy dance numbers, fight scenes, like that one I'm really feeling. And then most recently, I've actually gotten really excited about this Alicia Keys musical, which she's not in. She's just like the creative team behind it, and it's like some of her music is in it. Hell's Kitchen, I did not know was partially apparently a jukebox. Like, I gotta pull up now to hear Empire State of Mind by Alicia Keys, the same way that people pulled up to New York, New York just to hear New York, New York. Like, that's gotta be good. Like, I just think in general it's probably a very strong production, but getting to hear Alicia Keys songs on Broadway really like makes me even more excited. Now, last week we talked about how Purple Rain, the musical based off of Prince's movie, was announced. Well, we've already gotten more information about it. This musical is set to open spring 2025 in Prince's hometown of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Like I said last week, I'm so excited for this. I have an aunt actually up in Minneapolis that's a huge Prince fan, so I'm like, maybe I should fly up and see that next year because it's going to be so good. Like, I'm ready for it. The next theater thing I want to talk about is this Six royalty program. Six, the musical on Broadway, announced a loyalty program in which you get rewards for how many times you go see the show on Broadway. So, for example, if you go see Six 3 times, you get an exclusive Six selfie ring light and House of Holbein sunglasses. If you go 6 times, you get an exclusive Six Bluetooth speaker. If you go 12 times, you get to dine like royalty and drink from the Queen's Cup with your bestie in the Queen's Corner at Bond 45. If you go 18 times, you get a personalized video message from the Queens. If you go 24 times, you get a meet and greet with a Broadway queen. And if you go 30 times, which is the final like level that you can reach, and I already know somebody's going to reach it, but 30 times will get you an entire royal day with 6 Broadway, which includes an overnight stay at a Times Square hotel, a dinner for 2 at Queen's Yard, a window card signed by the entire Broadway company of 6, a queen-sized 6 Hershey's chocolate bar, a 6-inspired floral arrangement from Starbright Floral Design, an in-store makeup appointment for 2 at MAC, plus a Royal MAC makeup pack to take home with you. They're really treating you if you get that 30. I've never seen a show do something like this. Like, I feel like this is really cool. It's really a nice way to, like, reward people that are a fan of your specific show. Like, if Moulin Rouge did this, I would have racked up by now. I mean, I've been to the Broadway one like 8 times. That's like 3 levels of the 6 royalty program. And then with 6, if they did allow previous attendances to this show to count, they don't. It only starts like since they've announced the royalty program. But I'd be just one show away from getting a ring light and sunglasses because I saw the show twice in 2022. But they're not counting that, so it's fine. I just like think this is a really cool thing to do. Then the last theater thing that I want to talk about is this new production of Romeo and Juliet that got announced for the West End in London. It's starring Tom Holland, who will be playing Romeo, and it's being done by Jamie Lloyd, and it's going to run from May through July on the West End. And I just have to say, like, I need this so bad. Like, for those that don't know, Tom Holland actually started on stage in the West End production of Billy Elliot, the musical. So he's pretty, like, familiar with, like, the whole, like, theater vibe, you know? We know him from Spider-Man, but he actually got his start on the stage. And all I can think is just, like, how can we get this to transfer to the United States on Broadway? I was, like, sitting down thinking about it, like, what are the odds that this production of Romeo and Juliet can transfer to Broadway? I mean, we've had several other Jamie Lloyd shows in recent history that have transferred from the West End to Broadway. We have Sunset Boulevard, which is coming this year. Last year, we had A Doll's House with Jessica Chastain. And then in 2022, we had Cera, which technically wasn't really a Broadway production. It was at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, but it still went from the West End to New York City. And then in 2019, we had Betrayal on Broadway with Tom Hiddleston, Charlie Cox, Zawe Ashton. So if you ask me, I think there's a chance we might see Tom Holland on Broadway. I'm going to hope for it. It could just be like a short little limited run. Just tell me the dates. I will be up there. I would love to see it. Then in television, we have a couple of things to talk about in the television world. First of all, Cobra Kai Season 6 is coming. Cobra Kai released a promotional video featuring the cast and showing that they have begun filming for Season 6, which is the final season. I don't know if anyone knows. I think I may have discussed about my love for this show before, especially like maybe during like our reboots and revivals episode from Season 1. But I really, really love Cobra Kai, and I just think it's a really well done show. Like, just like to be able to pull so much material and so many of the characters with the original actors back for this franchise, it's just like so well done. And I didn't even really like enjoy season 5 as much compared to the other seasons. I just felt like the finale was good, but as a whole, it was like a pretty slow, like almost filler season. But I feel like since season 6 is the last season, it's gotta be done well. And I hope I like how it's done, you know. I think it's gonna be like a big championship with Miguel or something like that. But we'll see. Hopefully it's a strong conclusion. They've got to stick the landing. The journey has been very great so far. They've got to end it strong. Abbott Elementary also returned for season 3. It's back after a longer delay with like the writer's strike and the actor's strike happening. I think like the intention was for Abbott Elementary to kind of like run alongside like the actual school year. And so when they premiered this season 3 now in February, I think they did a very creative way of addressing the break, which was they basically said that the camera crew that's been filming the documentary of the show, they got robbed, and the whole time they were like not on the air was just like the camera crew trying to save up money to buy more cameras. I just think that was like very well done. Although I did like, at first I really questioned the need to address that break and like then Janine is like, I work for the school district now. You guys missed a lot. I was like, oh, so they're like making big changes here. Like they're going to do like flashbacks and show us like that's probably why they addressed it too, is because they had like this whole storyline that they kind of made up for the characters, even though we didn't see it leading up to now. And so it's like now we have to do a flashback. And that's kind of like what a lot of the episode was kind of a look back to see like what happened since we last saw them. And I think this season is building up to be something pretty good. I mean, Janine's kind of got a new role, and then we have like this whole relationship with Janine and Gregory. Like, it kind of stung how they did it. I was like, oh man, like, they was mad at each other. But like, it's slow burn. We will get there. We will. And then like, I just feel like the writing in this show, like, it never slips. Like, these episodes, because it was a full hour like premiere, it was so funny. Like, I was laughing the whole time. And I think I'm going to say that Ava is probably my favorite character. She just gets, like, a lot of, like, the funnier, like, lines and just, like, she's so silly and so unserious. And I love the whole concept that, like, they broke her. Like, they made her, like, a perfect principal, and then they had to, like, fix her by getting her back to, like, her normal, wild, silly self. But I thought that episode was really funny. And then the second episode had a cameo from the Philadelphia Eagles, which I loved. But yeah, like it was just so funny, like this whole like premiere, and I think it was really well done to kind of like place us back into the space of like the lives of these characters and where they have been and what's happening now. It really was a premiere that made me excited for the rest of the season to come. I also really quickly just want to give a little update on my experience watching The Bachelor, because last week I talked about how I wanted to see more episodes, and now we are getting more episodes because we get like an episode on Monday and Tuesday now. I don't know if they're going to do it again next week, but that's pretty fun, like back-to-back episodes, so I don't have to wait. But this budget for this show, can I just say, is like so huge, because like not them going like overseas into other countries and stuff, like Love Island, y'all just staying in the villa. Maybe you get to go to the beach, but like you're just staying in the house. I can't believe they do all of these like huge things, and like just the budget is crazy. I'm also learning a lot as I keep watching that if nothing else, this show is extremely formulaic. Like the whole villain narrative that they've created and the way that like I, among like many of the other viewers online, are still Team Maria is like, it's so funny. They're dragging it really, like, I see right through this villain narrative. I don't know what they cut, but like the reactions are just too crazy. It's like so formulaic. And then also because of this break that we had, just like the week, I was like, I need to see more of this show. So I started The Golden Bachelor, and now I understand when they had that talent show, or it was a pageant for them, and they had that episode where they had like the Askin ladies. Now I see where the Askin came from in The Golden Bachelor and that talent show episode for them. And then Joey was also in The Golden Bachelor. So I was like, uh-oh, cameo moment. Like, he was in their show, and then they came over to his show. And I'm also starting to realize that each season they do the same stuff. Like, I guess they have a talent show type of thing or pageant, and then they have like a wedding theme, costume contest thing. Like, all of the games are the same, basically, and then they just change what they do. I'm starting to realize. So yeah, back to like the formula. I'm seeing a very specific like formula for The Bachelor. And then also throwing it out there that they just announced that ABC picked up The Golden Bachelorette for season 1. I haven't finished The Golden Bachelor yet, but I'm guessing it will be the runner-up from The Golden Bachelor, who is The Golden Bachelorette. But I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm excited for that. I can't wait. I just really love like the golden concept. Now let's talk about the trending topics in the music industry, because this week was such a great week for music. As we talked about earlier, we got the new Beyoncé music, but we also got some awesome new singles from Madison Beer, Casey Musgraves, Girl in Red, and then Usher also dropped his new album, Coming Home, on Friday, ahead of that awesome halftime performance. We also got new tour announcements since we last spoke. Both Usher and Justin Timberlake are going on tour, and I want to go to both of those. And then Mariah Carey actually announced a Vegas residency, so that's exciting too. And then can we also just loop back around and talk about Taylor Swift's new album, The Tortured Poets Department, which I'm just now finally getting into the habit of saying the proper name. Because, like, I, like many other people, kept saying Society, especially after it got compared to Dead Poets Society, the movie. Department is just so clunky to say. But anyways, since we last spoke, Taylor released the track list, and it features collabs with Post Malone, which was kind of surprising until I realized he's doing like a folk country-ish thing now. And then also Florence and the Machine, who are on a song called Florida, which I hope I get to hear live because I'm literally seeing Taylor in Florida this year. So, like, she has to sing her song called Florida. I think the track that I claim, though, is But Daddy, I Love Him, because, like, that's Harry Styles. Probably not about him, but it's, like, a classic Harry Styles fan thing that, like, it's like a shirt that he's worn, like, multiple times, and, like, all of the fans being fans got the same shirt. And so it's like a very well-known saying. And so I think it's such a interesting coincidence there. So it's like one of those things where, like, if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, I'm sorry. I also think that I Can Fix Him, No Really I Can will be a very fun song because, like, what is that title? I can fix him. No, really, I can. Yeah, girl, convince yourself. We'll see what she's singing about there. The last music thing that I want to talk about is Cody Simpson. I know that's like a very random thing to talk about because I feel like I have not spoken his name in many years. But you guys, he's in the Olympics or trying to be in the Olympics like actively right now. He's a swimmer and he's been competing in Australia to qualify for the Paris Olympics this year. Like, that's crazy. When I heard about that, I was like, I have to talk about this. Like, does everybody else know that he's doing this? And I mean, for those that don't know, Cody Simpson is a pop singer that shaped some of our early preteen lives, approximately between the years of 2011 and 2013. I have a very embarrassing video of me and my little cousin dancing to Pretty Brown Eyes in her bedroom, and it's very embarrassing. I wouldn't dare show a single person it, but I did revisit it when I heard this news about Cody Simpson, because I had like found it not too long ago, and I was like, oh, like Cody Simpson, Pretty Brown Eyes, I loved that song. And I like went back to the video, and it's literally like 3 minutes long. It's like the whole song. Like, we made a music video out of the song. What was that app? Like, it was done using that one app that you could like literally make music videos on. I was obsessed with it. Like, I made so many videos on it to the point where, like, if I ever got famous and people found and posted those videos, I would like cry. Like, oh, Video Star, that was the app, Video Star, if you remember that. Yeah, I think I'd be like so embarrassed. I think I would take all of my TikTok drafts leaking over my Video Star videos. Or actually, I don't know, because my TikTok drafts, I got like 2,000 of them. There's probably like more embarrassing stuff there. But yeah, Cody paused his music career to start pursuing his dream of swimming professionally. And I guess it is a temporary thing because he already said he's going to retire after the Paris Olympics. I just think that's so cool though. Like, I always say, you don't have to pursue just one thing in life. You can try out other stuff for fun too. Do what you want. And that's like exactly what he's doing. Now, moving on to our wild card section, let's talk about these Disney American Girl dolls, because American Girl, who I was a huge fan of while I was growing up, announced 3 new dolls that are based on Disney princesses, Ariel, Cinderella, and Tiana. And let me tell you guys, I need the Tiana one. Like, I need it. I think I might go buy it this weekend. It's so cute. Like, I don't even care that I'm 23. It would be so cute if I got her and like put her on a little stand in my room. She's just like very well made, and I love like the little costumes that they have for her. And these aren't even like, all American Girl dolls are expensive, but they did release like a collector's American Girl like princess collection back in like a year ago, I want to say, and that had like Rapunzel and Princess Jasmine, and those dolls were $300. I was like, absolutely not, absolutely no way. But these new Disney princess dolls are actually just the normal price of American Girl dolls, which are $125. So I actually think that's a little bit more fair. I guess like the $300 ones are like top-notch quality. They're for collectors, not for like little kids. But this one is like for, I'm not going to say little kids because I want it. This one is for everyone, not just like the people that are like not going to touch the doll and put it in and keep it in the box because it's $300. So yeah, I'm probably going to get the Princess Tiana one. And if I do, I will show her off to all of you guys. Maybe I'll film a little unboxing video because I need it. Like, the more days that pass, I have like a whole like spending rule where I'm like, okay, if I see something and I want it, don't buy it, wait 24 hours, wait 48 hours, and see if I still care. It's been like multiple days and I still very actively care about this doll. So I'm probably going to get this doll. Now, moving on to our fandom corner today, I just want to do a little rant because it has just gotten especially ridiculously bad on the internet in the last week. I think Taylor Swift is the prime example, but it just goes like much further past her, I think. It's part of the reason why I actually stopped using Twitter so much. I mean, I go like days or weeks without using it now because like Twitter has just become such like an echo chamber of everyone constantly trying to like outsmart and outtalk everyone else. There's just like this overarching energy where everyone is toxic and miserable. And I know that's like what social media is and has kind of like always been. It's always been pretty toxic. But I just feel like now there's like no line anymore. It's like one big hive mind, and if you disagree, you're over. And I'm not talking about like political issues, real stuff like that. Like if you're racist or just a bad person, then no. I'm saying like people on the internet tend to not engage in back and forth communication. And oftentimes, if you disagree, the conversation just immediately escalates to taking shots and calling people names, or at the worst, doxing people, which has happened a lot recently over like silly little like Twitter beef, like fandoms, and people like just like doxing people because they don't agree with like what you said about like a pop star or a rapper. And that's just like, that's ridiculous. Anyways, I'm just going to say the way that people have been talking about Taylor Swift in the last week online has been insane. And on the internet, it's one thing. Like I already said, that area is so unserious and just not worth brain time to me at this point anymore. But it's like, it felt so ridiculous when I started hearing people say the things that I saw like on Twitter out loud, like in the real world. I'm in grad school now, and in an entertainment class, we had a class discussion about the Grammys. And it was going nice. You know, I was talking about some of the stuff I talked about on the pod last week with like Miley Cyrus killing her performance and being excited to see like Victoria Monet and Coco Jones also win their first Grammys. But then, like on Twitter, it immediately became a space to bash on Taylor Swift. And you know, as a Swiftie, I don't like that. But I do know that everyone is entitled to their own opinions, and everyone doesn't have to like her or her music. It's not for everyone, whatever. What got me was just some of the ridiculous stuff being said. Like, oh, she's self-serving for announcing another album on the night of the Grammys when people were celebrating music as a whole. And it's like, oh, did you catch Casey Musgrave's new album announcement? That was also done on the same night. And while I know she didn't do it on stage like Taylor, that wasn't my classmate's argument at all. It was just like a problem that Taylor did it. And like, it felt like they couldn't come up with any like critical thinking past like, I'm just so sick of seeing her, because they connected Taylor and Taylor releasing another album to another year of seeing her at the Grammys next year. And see, me, I'm sitting there like, actively feeling like, what is going on? But I don't want to like overly share my opinion because I don't want to sound like someone who's like going so hard for a celebrity that doesn't know I exist. But like, for what it's worth, I'd rather be doing that than using the same exact energy to be hating so hard on a celebrity that doesn't know I exist over something so stupid. Like, Taylor is not going to hear or care that you were mad about her album announcement. So why waste that energy? She's going to make millions off the Tortured Poets department while we're at home discussing this. Like, in the same time that someone wrote their think piece on Twitter, her website had a waiting room because that many fans logged on to buy the album. But, like, at least you got, like, 20,000 likes. Congratulations, I guess. I don't know what that counts for. I don't know. I just rather be a fan than a hater, especially for an artist where there isn't really any substance to be a hater. But that's just, like, my little rant. It just seems like people have decided they don't like Taylor and they just look for any little thing to pull apart with her. Like, can we just think for ourselves when it comes to stuff like that? It just sounds like everyone is just repeating like the same three things because it's trendy. And that's not to say that Taylor Swift or any other celebrity is above criticism. Like, yeah, I'd even agree that like, to me, the Lana thing looked a little weird, the way that she dragged her up there. But like, I don't know anything about Taylor or Lana's personal lives or their dynamic of their relationship, so I'm not going to sit on my butt at home and start writing think pieces and making TikToks saying that Taylor Swift is a bully to Lana Del Rey, even after Lana said she was okay. Even after I'm seeing them like in the Super Bowl booth together, like, okay. I guess maybe it's easy to forget because of the overexposure that y'all complain about, but for those that need a reminder, we do not know any of them personally. Now, of course, for real social issues and serious mistakes, celebrities should be held accountable and all that. I'm not going to be supporting a problematic person. But for some stuff, it's just like, really? You don't like that she stood up and danced during every performance? Grow up. Like, half of her overexposure isn't even her own doing. Like, why are you getting mad that a music artist is doing her job as a music artist, releasing and promoting music? But that's it. That's just my little rant on that. That's the last time I'm sharing my thoughts on the internet debates with Taylor Swift because, like, I don't even look at it anymore. I didn't even dare open Twitter to see what people were saying about Taylor after the Chiefs won for the Super Bowl because I just know it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Now, for our last section of the pop recap, I have a little fan feature because on last week's episode, we talked about different trending news as well as different Super Bowl halftimes. And throughout the week on social media, I put out a few polls and asked you all, my fellow fans of pop culture, for your opinions. In our Pop Culture Lately episode, I talked about the new Toy Story Crocs, and on Instagram, 75% of you guys let me know that Buzz Lightyear Crocs are superior to the Woody ones. I have to disagree. I'm probably going to get the Woody ones. I just wish they said Andy, but I love the cowboy theme. I also asked you all to let me know what your favorite Super Bowl halftime show is after last week's episode, which was based on that. The most popular response was Beyoncé. Paulette, Kelsey, Marcus, and Joy all reached out to say her 2013 show was their favorite. Layla says that Bruno Mars is her favorite. Maria and Joey reached out to say that The Weeknd was their favorite. Keith says he loves Prince's performance. That was my number one pick too. And Felicia says she loved Rihanna. I also asked you guys to let me know now, looking forward, who you would want to see headline the Super Bowl. And I got a very large response from the Swifties. 7 people responded saying that Taylor Swift is their dream Super Bowl halftime performance. That's very valid. I mean, she could do like a whole Eras thing. It would be fantastic. Zachary wants to see Carrie Underwood. That would be a very interesting, fun choice as well. Oriana and Kelsey say they would like to see Harry Styles. Ooh, Marissa says she wants to see Bruno Mars headline again. That would be very good. I talked about that on last week's episode because I feel like he didn't headline like at his peak. Like he got like a bunch more hits after he headlined. So I think he's an artist that definitely could kill a second round at the halftime show. Taylor says Pink should perform. I never thought of that, but you know what? She would be good. Like a circus show, she would be flipping around that stadium. I love that. And then Maria wrote, there should be another Latin show with artists like Karol G or Bad Bunny. Leticia also said that she wants to see Bad Bunny. I could get with that. It would be a good show, I think. They both have huge hits. They both sell out stadiums. I think they would shut it down. We have a little while before we find out exactly who will be headlining next year's show, but we can be on the lookout for clues along the way and all of that stuff. And as soon as the news breaks, I will let you all know when we find out. Make sure you're following on social media to participate in our next fan poll. It's at Fan Fave Media. I'm mainly active on Instagram and TikTok right now, but I always want to hear from you. That's all for this week's Pop Recap. Now let's get into the topic for today. Whether you're a drama fan or a comedy fan, at some point in time, you've seen a good romance movie. Today, I'm going to be sharing some of my favorites. Consider this episode to be like a playlist of movie recommendations, and the way we're going to talk about this today is by genre. I will talk a little bit about my favorite romance movie and each of the big romance genres: drama, comedy, musical, and the fun in this is our genres are going to get more and more chaotic as we go along, so I'll also be sharing my favorite romantic action movies and my favorite romantic horror movies. And yes, those do exist. So yeah, each category I'll highlight a favorite and then I'll list out a few more recommendations in each category for y'all to add to your watch list this month. First off, let's start with drama. I'm not a big drama fan, to be honest, especially for romance movies. So the list of drama movies that I have seen spreads very thin, and that's why I'm going to start here. The movie that I chose for my favorite romantic drama is Titanic. Titanic is a movie that for the longest time I saw it multiple times, but never in its entirety. Like, I remember being a kid and watching this movie, but it felt so long. So I would always either catch the first half or the second half, which as a kid, that second half is what I would find more interesting because that's where the action happens. Also, like a side note that's kind of silly, but as a kid, if any of you guys are like in my age range and grew up watching Sweet Life on Deck, there's actually one episode that's like a copy and paste plot point from the Titanic. And I feel like I didn't even peep that when I was a kid, but I think about it a lot and I just had to mention that. But anyways, last February, in honor of the film's 25th anniversary, Titanic was re-released in theaters in 3D. So as the AMC A-list user that I once was, I was like, maybe this is a good opportunity to sit down with no distractions and watch this movie for the masterpiece that people say it is from start to finish. So I called up my friends and I was like, who wants to go, see the Titanic? And it was like crickets. So I was like, I guess let me go see it by myself, a solo movie trip. Even though I was like, do I even really want to sit in this theater for 3 hours and see it myself? Like, I hadn't gone to the movies by myself either, like, that much often. And so I was also just thinking about, like, the younger me that couldn't make it through the movie. And I'm also not a huge fan of 3D stuff. But I actually, like, pushed myself and went to go. And you guys, it was such a great experience. Like, something honestly just shifted for me with this movie. I never was like checking my watch, like ready to go. I had a slushie, I had popcorn, I had the time of my life. Everyone was singing, my heart would go on as the credits rolled. I just gained like a massive appreciation for this film. It's honestly a really well-made movie that's entertaining all throughout. It's a love story that's tragic and obviously based on the real events of the Titanic, so it's got some historical context as well. There's even this underlying like class conflict, and I really love the spirit of mischief that Jack and Rose have together, especially since Rose is supposed to be like marrying someone else but instead follows her heart. I love that trope. They're just like such a duo that fit each other really well, and who doesn't love young Leo? The best things about this film, there's so many pop culture moments in this film. You have the "it's been 84 years" moment. You have "paint me like one of your French girls." You have the scene on the deck on the front of the boat and he's like, "I'm the king of the world." And then you also have the constant debates about whether or not Rose could fit Jack on the door at the end, which for what it's worth, last year James Cameron did do some experiments with stunt people based on the different fan theories. And first off, he found that if Jack had gotten on the door with Rose, yes, he may have fit, but it would have sunk because their weight would have tipped it. Then he said if they both had gotten on the door but positioned themselves so that the upper halves of their body were not freezing in the water, there's a chance that they could have survived because they would have been protecting their vital organs that way. So with that scenario, it's just like how long they would have been out there to sustain doing that. The last scenario is that Jack could have survived if Rose had given him her life jacket, which James Cameron said Jack might have lived, but there's a lot of variables. I think his thought process was, I'm not going to do one thing that jeopardized her, and that's 100% his character. So there's that. I think the ending is devastating, but I can't imagine it not ending that way. I think we all know that the real life story of the Titanic is a tragedy. So to have like this whimsical love story end and it not be tragic too, like it just feels like it's in tune with what the Titanic is. It should have ended with that tragedy. I think just works really well with the movie. I also recommend in the drama category Crazy Rich Asians, which I debated putting in this section or the comedy section, but regardless, it's here and it's such a beautiful movie. That wedding scene especially is just such a moment. I also have Everything Everything, which is a teen romance movie with Nick Robinson and Amanda Stenberg. This was my teen romance movie. This was out when I was a teen. I saw it at the theaters with high school friends. I was a huge Nick Robinson fan back then. It was, in fact, everything. I also have to shout out Call Me By Your Name because who doesn't love to watch Timothée Chalamet frolic around in Italy? And then the last drama I will recommend is The Notebook. to you guys and also to myself because I have not seen it. And don't say, Kat, you can't recommend us a movie you haven't seen. I think I'm safe with this one because people talk about it all the time. And I'm a Ryan Gosling fan. I like all his other movies. And this is now a musical on Broadway that I want to see. So I finally need to check this one out. And if you haven't, I think it's a classic. So you probably should. I feel like I'm missing out by having not seen it. So yeah, I'm recommending this to all of us. I'm also going to throw in Leap Year, which I personally did not like this movie, but this year is a leap year. So if you're ever going to give this movie a try, I think now is the time that you're supposed to watch it because it is a leap year. But yeah, for this category, I'm taking recommendations for drama movies you think that I should watch. Currently on my list for movies I have not seen that are drama romances are Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Her, Pride and Prejudice, no, I haven't seen that, the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet, and the Before Sunrise trilogy. I feel like I just named a bunch of classic movies that like film Twitter and like film bros would be like, you haven't seen that? No, I haven't seen it. But let me know if there's something else good that I'm missing. I'm well aware that I'm lacking in the drama category. Moving on though to comedy, because like comedy, I could talk hours and hours and hours about my favorite rom-coms. I must always laugh with my romance, okay? Dramas always end so sad, like they die or they break up, but I can confidently go into rom-coms knowing that I'm good, it's chill, like usually, like a comedy, a romance comedy, it's going to be a fun time. I don't have to worry about any of that sad stuff. The movie I chose for my favorite rom-com is Crazy Stupid Love because I could never get tired of this movie. Never. I never could get tired of this. This is part one of the very near and dear to my heart, Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone cinematic universe. I love that there's like multiple storylines kind of happening all at once, and then the plot twist that happens with it, I don't know why I didn't see it coming, and I'm not going to say what it is because if you haven't seen Crazy Stupid Love before, I need you to stop what you're doing, go watch it, and I need you to experience that plot twist scene for yourself without knowing that it's coming. Even though I'm telling you there's a plot twist, you don't know what it is, and you need to know. A lot of you all probably have at least seen a clip from that scene because it's like a viral gif of Ryan Gosling that was used like everywhere for the longest time. The one of him like face palming and laughing. That is from the scene, okay? One of my all-time favorite moments in a comedy movie. Like, I'm not exaggerating. I was dying laughing. But yeah, the three storylines in this movie, it's kind of cheesy, but they all just do such a great job at like showing love at all stages in every possible way, like across generations. I mean, you have Steve Carell's character, who is going through potentially a divorce with his wife, who is played by Julianne Moore, and they were high school sweethearts. And then you have their son, who is in like middle school, I want to say, and he is crushing on his high school babysitter, but the babysitter is crushing on Steve Carell's character. And then you have Ryan Gosling's character, who is trying to help Steve Carell's character move on from his wife, who cheated on him. But Ryan Gosling's character is like, he's like a player, pretty much. And if you watch the show How I Met Your Mother, I always say his character and Barney Stinson would be like best friends. So if that's like a reference point, that's who Ryan Gosling's character is. But then, Ryan Gosling's character finds love. He falls in love with Emma Stone's character, who is actually currently in a very frustrating relationship with, guess who? You can never guess it, because I can never guess it. Josh Groban. It's so random that he's there. Yes, the musician. Yes, the former Sweeney Todd, Josh Groban. But anyways, I'm going to leave it at that part with like explaining all of these different storylines because it's starting to get into the twisting part and I don't want to spoil it. But I just love how the three storylines overlap and all its silliness and really just it shows love, like I said, at all generations. Beyond that plot twist scene, some of my favorite moments include when Jacob, Ryan Gosling's character, takes Cal, Steve Carell's character, shopping, and there's just like this very dramatic clip of Jacob like standing in the mall eating a slice of pizza. You have to see it to get it, to be honest, but I had a movie wall in my college dorm, like a collage on my wall of just like pictures from all of my favorite movies and television shows. And for Crazy Stupid Love, that was the photo that I had. It was just of Ryan Gosling eating pizza on my wall. Just one of my comfort movies. Also, the scene where Cal and Emily, Julianne Moore's character, meet up at their son's school for like a parent-teacher conference, and their son's teacher is Marissa Tomei, who Cal had actually started seeing. It's like peak comedy because it's just so wild because his character hasn't dated anyone since his wife because they were high school sweethearts. So he was telling the teacher like verbatim all of the pickup lines that he told his wife. And so it makes for a very awkward scene when they all meet and they don't realize like that's their son's teacher. But yeah, that scene is just peak comedy. And then you also have Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone, whose chemistry is just top notch. But I want to talk about one specific scene that people may not know about is the Dirty Dancing scene that they have. Two fun facts about it is that one, it was not in the original script, and it was actually something that was based on Ryan Gosling's personal life because he apparently told the directors that this Dirty Dancing move was actually a move that he used before to pick up girls. And the directors were like, that's hilarious, this has to be in the movie. And then two, Emma Stone is actually not the one in that lift in the movie that we see. In an interview in the Graham Norton show, Emma and Ryan talk about how they used a stunt double for that scene because Emma Stone has a fear of being lifted up in the air, which isn't something that I could have picked up without reading about it. But like, if you watch it knowing that, they actually film it from a very far distance. You can't see their faces when they're doing the lift. So that's like a really interesting fun fact that like I had no clue about. Additional comedy movies that I recommend. First off, I Want You Back, which is a very, very, very close runner-up. It's a pretty recent movie. It came out in 2022, and it stars Jenny Slate and Charlie Day as two people in long-term relationships that abruptly end. They somehow run into each other and decide to befriend each other's exes to convince them to reconsider the breakups. This movie is just so funny. I could go on and on about it, but I just want to say there's a moment at the end that's so full circle. It was like this movie was rom-com gold, but then this moment just like cemented that for me. And especially with recent rom-coms like Anyone But You and No Hard Feelings, kind of making people sit back and say like, we needed this genre of rom-coms back. Like, not high quality, over the top, but just fun movies. I have to continuously tell people time and time again, do not miss this one right here. Just go watch it, please. I Want You Back is so funny. I think it's streaming on Amazon Prime. I would never not recommend that movie. In the rom-com category, I also have here 50 First Dates, which is the Adam Sandler, Drew Barrymore rom-com that I grew up watching. I also really love the Adam Sandler, Jennifer Aniston rom-com, Just Go With It. It's a bit long, but it's a good one. I also love classics like Splash with Tom Hanks. I think that's like one of my favorite older movies that he's in. And by older, I just mean like from the 80s era. And then also While You Were Sleeping, which I already talked about my love for this movie in our past holiday playlist episode a couple months ago. 13 Going on 30 is another rom-com that I absolutely love. I think there's a very specific era of like early 2000s movies where they like all had similar styled posters, like the white background with big colorful letters, usually hot pink or red, and the leads are like posing in front. If you look at a lot of these posters, you know exactly what I mean. But like out of that era of like early 2000s chick flicks, I think 13 Going on 30 is like my all-time favorite one. When I turn 30, I don't care how overdone it is at that point, I will be having a 13 Going on 30 themed birthday party, wearing the dress that Jenna Rink wears. And you guys, I don't know if I've talked about it before, but I have a strong obsession with the years of like 2013 and 2014 in music. It's just like, it was an era. So anyways, I win because that's when I was 13, and I'm going to have a DJ play hits from 2013 and 2014 mixed in with the hits from 2030 because it's like 13 going on 30. And yeah, it's going to be so much fun. And we're going to have a Thriller dance. I don't care that this is 7 years away from happening, by the way. I'm very serious about it. I'm already planning it deep in my brain. It will happen. Then some other more recent rom-coms that I love are Love, Simon, another Nick Robinson movie that has great comedy and a soundtrack by our coming-of-age music king, Jack Antonoff of Bleachers. The 2020 movie Palm Springs, which is a Groundhog Day style movie starring Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti. I don't typically love Groundhog Day movies, but this one is different and has a lot of fun with it. I rewatched this one a ton, maybe more than they repeat the same day in the movie. I've seen it so many times. And then it's also just like not fair if I don't also mention the movie Valentine's Day, another one of Gary Marshall's holiday movies with an ensemble cast and a bunch of different storylines in it. This is also the one that has Taylor Swift in it and Taylor Lautner and a lot of other big actors. So yeah, why not check it out? Now, moving on to musicals. I love musicals so much, and there's always a lot of love in musicals. My main movie, we're returning to the Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone cinematic universe with La La Land. La La Land, this movie is my everything. For some reason, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. It doesn't even feel like a real musical to me, if I'm being honest, but it has songs here and there. The opening is refreshing and fun, and then I just love Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone's chemistry in this. And like, fun fact, did you guys know that it wasn't originally going to be them two in this movie? It was almost Miles Teller and Emma Watson. And while I'm sure it still would have been great, I think it probably would have felt like a completely different movie. But this whole story, the one of like chasing your dreams and trying to make it in Hollywood while weighing your passions against your opportunities and just like having love throughout it all. And then the ending, it's not one that a viewer taking that journey, watching the stories of these characters wants to see, but it's one that just makes sense. I mean, when two ambitious people are chasing their dreams, the way that they can fall in love and uplift and encourage each other, and then to have those same dreams pull them apart, it's just so compelling of a story, I think, to see. And like I said, it's done alongside a beautiful score and just really lovely scenery. Speaking of the score, like the continuous theme throughout the film, all the way through from the beginning to the end, it's so good, but also a little devastating. Like, that is Mia and Sebastian's theme. There's so many scenes that I just absolutely adore, like the planetarium scene, and then of course that ending montage. It's like a dream sequence that shows what could have been. It's just beautifully done. It's a scene that's actually inspired by so many other older musicals, but in part by the 1951 musical An American in Paris, which is another romance movie that I love. But guys, this is a movie that I honestly could go on and on about. It's highly likely that I will do a full episode on this movie sometime in the future of this podcast. So I'm going to save my rambling for then and give you guys some more musical recommendations. I also recommend for you guys Enchanted. This is a top tier film, one of Disney's best. I actually rewatched this not too long ago, but with a cast that features Amy Adams, Patrick Dempsey, James Marsden, Idina Menzel. It's a princess movie that's unique and a ton of fun, and the soundtrack is like so good. Like, that's how you know. And then like the actual scene in the movie too, the whole like New York City is so dirty and people are living hard lives and it's the very serious world until these fun out of touch people show up and bring joy and magic into the lives of previously uptight characters like Patrick Dempsey's character Robert. I eat that stuff up in the movies. Like, that's one of my favorite tropes. Elf is another movie that does that. But yeah, it was like that scene, like That's How You Know, and just like a lot of the other like musical numbers, they're just so cute. It's catchy. I mean, the little working song, like, come on, like, this is a really good movie. And it was one of my favorite movies growing up as a kid. And so I actually I haven't watched Disenchanted yet because I actually have a genuine fear that if it's not good, it will upset me. So if anyone has seen it and wants to let me know that it's okay, I'd check it out, but I can't be let down, okay? Since I mentioned Enchanted, I also have to mention its cousin, Ella Enchanted, which I think is criminally underrated. The Somebody to Love scene is my Roman Empire, and this is also oddly a movie that gets better and better, like, further into it. Like, the ending with Don't Go Breaking My Heart is so good. If you haven't seen this movie, please go watch it. You won't be disappointed. I also have to shout out my favorite Broadway show, which is adapted from a romance movie, Moulin Rouge, the flashy Baz Luhrmann film starring Nicole Kidman and Ewan McGregor. It wouldn't be right if I didn't recommend that, and the film is very good. And then also The Muppets with Amy Adams and Jason Segel. I think it counts. There's great music. There's a love story in this, a love triangle, if I dare push it there, because there is a huge storyline of Amy Adams' character feeling that Jason Segel's character isn't spending enough time with her and instead with the Muppets. And that's why we have the iconic Jason Segel ballad, Man or Muppet. It still hits. Like, that song is still a hit in my house. Now we're getting into some of the more unexpected categories, starting off with action. I think a lot of action movies present room for romance. A romance that sometimes even hits harder than other genres, like this idea of how much you will do whatever sacrifices that it takes to save the person that you love. Spider-Man, in my opinion, and I think it should be your opinion too, presents the best romance stories in superhero movies. For what it's worth, every Spider-Man actor, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland, they've all ended up dating their female co-star like in real life. I mean, you had Kirsten Dunst for Tobey Maguire, Emma Stone for Andrew Garfield, and now Zendaya and Tom Holland. And I feel like that's not for no reason, because Spider-Man and his girl, whether it's Gwen Stacy or MJ, they always have the best chemistry that's so good that it really rubs off on them in real life. All 3 trilogies or 2 movies for Andrew Garfield are so good. Which, speaking of Andrew Garfield, I remember 14-year-old me being hurt by The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I mean, I think I was mad too for a long time because Andrew's Peter told Gwen Stacy to stay at home and she didn't listen. Like, girl, but that scene in the clock tower is just like gut-wrenching. But I think across the movies in general, like Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone's Peter and Gwen, they have the best like on-screen chemistry. Although I don't think they have the best storyline. I mean, it ends with her dying. So by definition, they have the worst storyline. But even before that, though, I think their romance could have been a bit more in the movies, just like in comparison to Tobey and Tom's trilogies. You have Tobey's Spider-Man with Kirsten Dunst's MJ, and I think it's in Tobey's trilogy that you see the most like development in a Spider-Man relationship. I think it's just the nature of how his trilogy is set up, because his Peter goes through a lot with like his character, and I think that just directly impacts his relationship with MJ specifically. Like, we see him in his origin, unlike with Tom's Spider-Man, but then we also see his growth, his loss of confidence, his villain era. And I think that just affects Peter's dynamic with MJ in these movies because he's going through so much. And I mean, they're in love, but then you see them fight too. Like, we get conflict between them, but then they always come back together in the end. And I think that's special. In general, I do think Tobey is my favorite trilogy though, so maybe I am a little bit biased. But focusing on the romance elements, there's just so many sweet moments, like that upside down kiss. Also in Spider-Man 2, there's a lot in Spider-Man 2, but I think about that scene in the coffee shop a lot. It just looks so cool when he saves her. And then in Spider-Man 2, the scene where MJ leaves her wedding to run back to Peter, that's peak cinema right there. Peak cinema. I mean, I think Spider-Man 2 is the best Spider-Man movie out of them all, but that scene specifically is just such a great romantic moment. We can respectfully, though, ignore Spider-Man 3 if we want to. But even then, like, I think it ended when we were supposed to see more. Like, there was supposed to be, like, a Spider-Man 4. So their relationship was rocky in that movie. But based on the ending with them meeting back up at the jazz club, it was probably on its way to blossoming more again, I think. And then for Tom Holland's Spider-Man with Zendaya's MJ, there's just like this youthful, playful love between them. Although compared to the other Spider-Mans, the stakes always feel like much higher here because they're part of the greater MCU, which is like a lot to deal with. But I have to shout out Spider-Man Far From Home to be their best like movie together for like their romance arc, because there's nothing like traveling around Europe with a slow burn romance in Spider-Man Far From Home. When Peter tells MJ he's Spider-Man and she's just like, I know. Yes. And then the kiss on the bridge, like, hello, it's just like it's their peak. That movie. And I will not be discussing the No Way Home ending. That was not cute. Like, they really don't remember each other. That sucks. My runner-ups would be Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which if you haven't seen that, you must. It's so entertaining. It's like Michael Cera plays Scott Pilgrim, and he falls in love with Ramona Flowers, who's played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead. And then basically, in order to date Ramona, Scott has to defeat all 7 of her evil exes. I really love the comic book style of this film. And then if you haven't seen it, I challenge you to watch it without looking up the rest of the cast, because this cast is so stacked. So like, not going in, I feel like you'd be like, OMG, like every 5 seconds. Another great action movie is The Matrix, and I'm just talking about the first one. And I also like the fourth, but yeah, just the first one. For that line towards the end, which, like, spoiler, I don't know if I'm even giving y'all, like, why I'm giving y'all a spoiler warning, because it's like, this movie's like 30 years old. But anyways, at the end, when Neo has been shot and it seems like he's dying, and I looked at this part in the script for you guys because it's so dramatic, and I cannot tell you just like by explaining, like, you need to understand, like, Trinity, she's like, Neo, please listen to me. I promise to tell you, the Oracle told me that I would fall in love, and that man, the man that I loved, would be the one. Which the one is like it's part of like the sci-fi story, but he's like the chosen one. Trinity was just like destined to fall in love with him. And so she was like, I know that you can't be dead because you have to be the one, because I'm in love with you. That was crazy. And he wakes up like Sleeping Beauty. His eyes snap open. That scene was everything. Like, that was like everything. I love Neo and Trinity. I also have to shout out the Mission Impossible franchise, because Ethan Hunt, he jumps around a lot, but his love for Julia was real. And I didn't like Ilsa because I feel like she just popped up so fast. And like, spoiler, now she's gone. So yeah, he just be going through it too. Another action romance movie is Ghosted, starring Chris Evans and Ana de Armas, which is silly, but it's silly fun. There's a scene in there with cameos that had me like dying of laughter. You have to see it to get it. Like, I don't want to spoil who it is, but it was like so back to back, all of these people popping up. It was just unexpected. And then we have The Outlaws, which is a pretty recent Netflix movie starring Nina Dobrev and Adam Devine that I thought was a lot of fun. Nina and Adam, their characters are like getting married, but Adam's character thinks that Nina's character's parents are bank robbers, and so like just a lot of chaos. It's just like a lot of chaos happens. I don't know like how else to explain it. It's like, it's very heavy action, but I love like the twists that they do in it. I feel like it's very unexpected. I also have here This Means War, which features Tom Hardy and Chris Pine as CIA agents fighting over Reese Witherspoon. And then lastly, Speed. I'm not sure how much this counts, but the dynamic between Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock is something that I wish we got more of in the sequel. I mean, Keanu wasn't even in the sequel. I just wish we got a better sequel. Now, in our final category of horror movies, I know it sounds silly, but there can be romance in horror movies. Just hear me out. The main movie that I picked was Twilight, okay? Maybe Twilight isn't a full horror movie, but it's dark and it's a fantasy love story about vampires, so it counts. And if we're talking Breaking Dawn Part 1, I think I was like 20 the first time I watched that, and I still was traumatized by it. Like, what was that birth scene and why was it so long? And I don't know, I just don't do a lot of horror, but the whole Renesmee thing, it was just like, it was a bit much. But yeah, Twilight is fun. It's campy, even though I doubt that was the film's intention. I also just think the Twilight era was just massive for pop culture and for shaping pop culture to the way it is now. Like, this really feels like the start or part of the start of like the teen fantasy dystopian prime era. Everyone was talking about Twilight, and like I said, I watched Twilight pretty recently for the first time just a couple years ago, and I like binge watched all of them, and it was an experience I will never forget. Certainly. There's so much that's iconic about the Twilight movies. I mean, there's 5 of them, and you have love stories in here among all of the different characters, but most notably, we have the vampire, wolf, love triangle. And I also love the iconic Moody filter in these movies. And then the soundtrack. The soundtrack is just like so good. I think my favorite Twilight movies are probably Eclipse and Breaking Dawn Part 1. I should probably do like a full episode maybe one day, like ranking my favorite Twilight movies, maybe in like October for spooky season or whatever. But yeah, my favorites are Eclipse for the storyline and Breaking Dawn Part 2 for that crazy twist at the end, and just for being an exhilarating conclusion to the franchise. Like I said, I wasn't a teen during the Twilight era, but I I just know being a teen in this era was probably so much fun. I read some articles about how the cast and team behind the film, they saw like the fandom explode from them not being recognized on the street to like not being able to go anywhere without being stopped. It's like considered a huge starting point for the careers of Robert Pattinson, especially, and then also Kristen Stewart, who did have more acting roles before Twilight, but I think this is what really blew her up. But like, I loved how the massive popularity came with like fun fan events. Like, I would have loved to be in an opening night crowd for Twilight. I feel like that had to be such an experience. In general, though, to explain my inclusion of horror in this episode, I just think the idea of love in horror movies is something interesting to explore. And I mean, I initially just decided to throw it in because it's just a silly idea. And if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know in season 1, I did an episode on my favorite scary movies because I can't even really do like real scary horror movies. So it makes sense why I said Twilight for my number 1 pick. But if we think about it, actually, as bad as it sounds, like a lot of like really good stalker movies or obsession movies, they're really just like romance movies if you think about it. Like, think about it. Stalkers are people in love with something so much that it drives them mad, insane, crazy, like really crazy. So I came up with some more not really scary movies for you all to check out. Misery is my first runner-up because she's so obsessed, she's crazy. Then I have Don't Worry, Darling, because he's so obsessed, he's crazy. That one Sydney Sweeney Amazon Prime movie because they're so obsessed, they're crazy. And then I have Saltburn. I don't know what was up with him, but if you somehow haven't seen it yet, despite it trending for the past 2 months, give that a try too. I promise you, it's a crazy movie. It's insane, but you might as well give it a try. Happy Valentine's Day, and I hope you all found a movie from this episode to check out sometime during this week, alone or with somebody else on a date night. Let me know on social media what you're watching. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, tell a friend and make sure you let me know by leaving a review and following the podcast. As a reminder, at Fan Fave, it's all about the love for entertainment and the joy of being a fan. Fan Fave is active with even more content on social media, so make sure you don't miss anything. It's at Fan Fave Media everywhere. So connect with me because I want to hear from you, my fellow fans of pop culture. I'll see you next Tuesday when we'll dive into another aspect of pop culture. Thanks for listening and see you soon.